Hi, I'm Becca Kramer. This is my essay, A Reasonable Case for Telepathy, written for skeptics and read by me. This essay is for the skeptics. What would you do if you saw a video of someone reading their mother's mind from the other room? A young man named Akil is doing just that. Akil has autism and minimal speech. He communicates by pointing to letters on an iPad, while his mother, Manisha, is nearby for support. The method he uses to communicate is called spelling, which is considered invalid by most researchers. Scientific consensus claims communication via spelling is unconsciously controlled by the partner, not the non-speaker. So Akil's mother, Manisha, is accidentally controlling Akil's typing from several feet away. Yes, it's as unbelievable as it sounds. I'm an engineer and a skeptic. I believe in data, double-blind studies, and peer-reviewed journals. So why am I obsessed with the possibility of telepathy? After years of pain from a spinal injury, I reluctantly left work to become a stay-at-home mom. I was grappling with a deep desire for something more. For most of my adult life, I worked in a world defined by equations, verifiable outcomes, and the comfort of measurable truths. But the certainty that once sustained me began to crack under the weight of chronic pain and motherhood. So in 2024, I started writing a book on secular spirituality and pain, an exploration for skeptics like me, hungry for meaning without abandoning reason. That's when I stumbled across the Telepathy tapes, a popular podcast claiming that some non-speaking autistic individuals were communicating telepathically. The loving messages were inspiring, and I plan to include telepathy as a quirky aside, a maybe. As a nuclear engineer and major skeptic, it all sounded highly implausible, but I was intrigued. After the first episode, they had me thinking either telepathy was real or they were all lying through their teeth. Hoping for something out of this world, I listened without my usual doubt and skepticism. After finishing, I let myself question what I heard. Quickly, I found that the telepathy tapes had been repeatedly debunked in the media. I felt surprisingly devastated. Had all those lovely people just been lying? Something in me wouldn't move on, so I re-listened to the series. I took notes. I started noticing small, improbable details that hadn't been addressed in the debunkings. With science, everything is in the details. Despite my training and skepticism, something propelled me to examine the scientific consensus on spelling communication methods. Despite my training and skepticism, something propelled me to examine the scientific consensus on spelling communication methods. Soon I was watching every available telepathy test clip behind the Telepathy Tapes $9.99 paywall. Maybe I paid $10 for hope, but I hadn't felt this alive in years. It was as if, for a brief moment, I was personally uncovering the mysteries of the universe, one video at a time. These tests were utterly unbelievable. In a naive daze, I watched video after video of Akil reading his mother's mind. Sitting beside her, he repeatedly typed the word only she could see. Scientists claim she was somehow cueing his selections. I could not accept this explanation based on what I was observing. It appeared miraculous. Somehow, I was beginning to believe in telepathy. This made me uncomfortable, but also excited. My new goal was to disprove that Akil was reading his mother's mind. Could I find a more plausible explanation? Thus, my research began. Not to discredit science or non-speakers, but to find a place where my confused mind could rest. The communication method used by non-speakers, spelling, is considered a version of the widely controversial and discredited facilitated communication, FC. FC was banned in most U.S. schools in the late 1990s after repeated failures in double-blind testing. Major scientific organizations continue to discourage its use today. Proponents of spelling insist it is distinct from FC, but many scientists disagree. In their view, any method that relies on a communication partner is a variation of FC. World-renowned speech pathologist Dr. Howard Chayne developed simple double-blind protocols to test FC's validity. An old example of a double-blind test, often called a message passing test, was in the documentary Tell Them You Love Me. It showed a non-speaking girl named Betsy spelling out answers on a letterboard while sitting beside her facilitator. They are separately shown images in a manila folder. When both are shown a key, Betsy spells K-E-Y, key. But when Betsy sees a cup and her facilitator is shown a hat, Betsy spells H-A-T, hat. Betsy would always spell what her facilitator saw, regardless of what Betsy was shown. The researchers concluded that the facilitator was influencing her and controlling the communication, which was seemingly the only logical conclusion. How else could Betsy spell what only the facilitator saw? But from my perspective, tainted by a new spiritual longing, one question remained. What if Betsy was reading her facilitator's mind? I know this sounds far-fetched, but stay with me. I noticed Betsy wasn't looking at the board, which was often noted during FC, but non-speakers could still accurately select letters. Could they somehow be accessing the facilitator's sight? In the telepathy tapes, Akil did say he could see through his mother's eyes. Watching Betsy point to the letters with minimal support, quickly and accurately, without looking, seems like some sort of mind sharing. I found more than 40 published papers aiming to invalidate FC, all of which used a message passing test. The tests involved the facilitator and non-speaker being asked different questions and seeing which question the non-speaker answers. Again and again, the non-speaker responded to the facilitator's prompt, not their own. From this, researchers concluded that the facilitators were subconsciously controlling the communication. With each failed study, researchers became more certain that FC was invalid. The words communicated via FC, including all spelling methods, were considered to be subconsciously produced by the facilitator and not the non-speaker. Telepathy was not considered when developing these tests because telepathy is absurd. Some of these tests look like they are testing for telepathy rather than facilitator control. Most experts reject any notion of telepathy outright, citing the ideomotor effect, the unconscious movements a facilitator makes based on their desires. This effect can theoretically cue the non-speaker to select a letter. The cues may be visual or audible, anything the non-speaker can sense. It's like a subtle game of hot-cold where the non-speaker tries to guess the letter in the facilitator's mind. Cueing is the main theory discounting all spellers today and the telepathy tapes footage. The communication partner somehow cues the non-speaker when to select the letter. While an interesting theory, after watching sessions of proficient spellers, I was unconvinced by the ideomotor explanation. In these spelling sessions, non-speaker facilitator pairs are often side by side, typically not touching. Non-speakers select letters using their pointer finger or a pencil. Selections can be swift, decisive, and surprisingly accurate. Imagine attempting to do this with a partner. You scan over the letters with your finger and try to sense a subtle cue. selecting the letter you believe your partner wants. This would inherently take time, as the non-speaker must wait for the cue. A cue that the facilitator doesn't know they're responsible for. A cue that only tells the non-speaker when to select, not what to select. With even the simplest cue response cycle taking about 1 second, the ideomotor effect cannot plausibly explain the speed and accuracy demonstrated by experienced spellers, regardless of practice time. Perhaps the simpler answer is the correct answer. Perhaps spellers are doing what they say they are doing, communicating by pointing to letters. Remember, failed message passing tests are not proof of the ideomotor effect at work. They are proof of something at work. The ideomotor theory invalidating spelling has never been rigorously questioned until now. I have spent months evaluating the many disciplines involved: psychology, neuroscience, psychophysics, information theory, speech and language, and others. I'm excited to share what I've found. Without the ideomotor effect, cueing theory, you simply cannot discount the words produced by spellers. I have discussed this with leading researchers in this space, and I am confident there is no existing scientific argument to invalidate Akil's claims. If scientific consensus finds the research invalidating FC and spelling to be inconclusive, non-speakers may be allowed to practice these methods with guidelines in place to ensure safety, authorship, and dignity as we seek to understand more. For once, there is no villain. Researchers involved understand their part of the science and have made reasonable assumptions based on the available research. I see deep concern and love for non-speakers on all sides. A terrible misunderstanding perpetuated by a new scientific phenomenon prevented us from reaching a consensus. But how amazing we get to see the whole truth now. Instead of anger, let's simply right the wrongs and come together. If we are not certain, err on the side of the least harm. If there is even a chance these voices are authentic, we must reconsider. Anything that unifies is worth our energy. Over the coming weeks, I'll share what I've found across multiple scientific fields like psychophysics, neuroscience, and information theory. If you're interested, please subscribe to follow along. I believe in evidence, peer review, skepticism, and probably telepathy. I welcome thoughtful disagreement, genuine curiosity, and fresh eyes. If you can, respectfully, prove me wrong.